Pick up your worthless gifts and leave my daughter alone.
Don't bother. That money cannot buy fertilizer, talk less of a wife. You are not a horse waiting to be fed.
Pick up your worthless gifts and leave my daughter alone. The carton hit the red earth first. Bottles rolled beneath the plastic chairs as the entire Ugbovia farmers' aloe meeting exploded with laughter. Then Chief Oseji threw Osahon Edeki Aloe's bride price envelope at his chest. It missed. The envelope landed in the mud. Osahon bent to pick it up, but Iwain Lai, his own fiancée, pressed her expensive sandal over it. "Donalo, bother," she said. "That money cannot buy fertilizer. Talk less of a wife." The laughter became louder. Somebody shouted, "The man cannot harvest cassava, but he wants to harvest another man, Aloe's daughter." Ewan removed the engagement scarf from her neck and flung it at Osahon Aloe's face. "No sensible woman will enter that unfinished house with you," she declared. "You are not a husband. You are another mouth waiting to be fed." Osahon stood motionless, rainwater slipping from his jaw as 40 villagers watched, his dignity being torn apart. Then a sewing machine stopped beneath the market shed. Isokan Agates rose slowly from her stool. She crossed the square, picked Osahon Aloe's envelope from the mud, wiped it against her dress, and placed it back in his hand. Iwan laughed. "Why are you touching it? Since you pity him so much, carry him home." Isokan turned. Her voice was quiet, but it silenced the whole square. "Maybe I will. Do not leave this story halfway, because the man they called useless was hiding a truth powerful enough to shake every farm, every family, and every liar in Ugbovia. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from, and your local time right now. And subscribe, because what happened after Isokan chose that humiliated farmer was something nobody in that village was prepared to survive. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Even the rain seemed to pause on the rusted zinc roofs surrounding the square. Then Iwan laughed again, but this time the sound came out too quickly, too loudly. It was the laughter of somebody who had expected submission and received resistance instead. "You?" she asked, pointing at Isokan. Isokan did not answer. She returned to the small wooden table under the market shed, sat before her black butterfly sewing machine, and lowered the needle into the half-finished school uniform beneath her hands. The machine began to move again. Tack, 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 tack. That simple sound traveled through the silence like an insult nobody could punish. Chief Oseji bent to gather the returned cartons. His wrapper was tied high around his large stomach, and the coral beads around his neck clicked against one another as he moved. "Osahon," he said, lowering his voice. Now that the crowd was no longer laughing with the same confidence, "Take your things and go. We have said what we came to say." Osahon looked at the old man. He could have replied. There were many things sitting behind his teeth. He knew Chief Oseji had accepted his proposal only 4 months earlier, because there had been rumors that the state government would compensate farmers along the new feeder road route. He knew the man had called him hard-working when everybody thought money was coming. He knew Iwan had visited his unfinished house twice, not to ask how they would build a life together, but to measure where a sitting-room television might stand. He knew all of it. But he said nothing. He bent and lifted the carton. One of the bottles rolled away. A boy of about 12 trapped it beneath his bare foot and looked up, waiting to see whether Osahon would drag it from him. "Take it," Osahon said. The boy blinked. "Sir?" "Take it home to your mother." The boy snatched the bottle and ran before anybody could change the decision. That was when Isokan looked up from her machine. Not because of the drink. Because of the way Osahon had spoken. There had been no performance in it. No attempt to show that he was still generous after being disgraced. He had simply seen a child who wanted something and given it away. Osahon carried the cartons through the rain. People shifted their feet to let him pass, but nobody offered to help. When he reached the edge of the square, Iwan called after him, "Do not come back to our house." He stopped. The rain tapped the carton in his arms. Then he turned his head slightly. "I will not." He continued walking. Iwan Alo's mouth tightened. She had wanted him to beg. Everybody knew it. Perhaps that was why the humiliation had been arranged in public, instead of inside her father Alo's compound. If Osahon had fallen on his knees, if he had promised to sell his mother Alo's land or borrow money for the outstanding marriage list, Chief Oseji might have allowed the engagement to survive long enough to extract something useful. But Osahon had not begged, and now Isaacon had placed one quiet sentence in the middle of their victory. "Maybe I will." By sunset, the sentence had entered every compound in Ugbovia. At the palm oil press, women repeated it while turning roasted kernels. At the roadside beer parlor, men argued over whether Isaacon had spoken from pity, madness, or secret knowledge. At the churchyard, two elderly women decided she had finally become desperate because she was 28 and unmarried. By the village borehole, Iwan told anybody who would listen that Isaacon had always been jealous of her. But Isaacon herself closed her sewing stall, balanced the machine pedal against the wall, wrapped the finished uniforms in brown paper, and went home to cook for her father. Their house stood behind a small plantain grove at the southern end of the village. It had 2 rooms, a narrow veranda, and a kitchen built from old cement blocks that had never been plastered. Her father, Pa Agatis, sat on a low chair near the doorway, rubbing oil into his left knee. He had once repaired tractors for commercial farms around Ekpoma. 7 years earlier, a hydraulic jack had failed beneath a machine. His right leg healed badly. His back never healed at all. Now he walked with a wooden stick and repaired small engines when work came. When Isaacon entered, he did not ask about the uniforms. He asked, "Did you truly say it?" She placed the bundle on the table. "Say what?" He looked at her. She removed her headscarf and sighed. "News travels faster than Okada in this village. You told Iwan you might carry Osahon home." I told her maybe. That word can destroy a person if people are waiting to complete the sentence for you. Isaacon brought water from the clay pot and drank. Agatis watched her over the rim of his glasses. "Do you love him?" he asked. She nearly choked. "Papa," I asked a clear question. "No." "Good." She stared at him. "Good?" "Yes. Because if you say yes now, I will know rain has entered your brain." Despite herself, she laughed. Her father did not. "You defended a man whose dignity was being torn apart," he continued. "That is not the same as choosing him for marriage. Do not let the village push you from one decision into another." Isaacon lowered the cup. "I know. Do you?" She looked through the open doorway. Beyond the plantain leaves, the sky was turning purple. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Somewhere nearby, a baby cried, and a woman called somebody Atlo's name twice. "I have watched him," Isaacon said. "For how long?" "Long enough to know that what happened today was wicked." "That was not my question." She turned back to him. "Almost 1 year." Pa Agatis stopped rubbing his knee. Isaacon sat opposite him. He returned the money Mama Esoi overpaid him at the market, even though she would never have known. He carried Odeon to the health center after the boy cut his foot at the processing shed. He helped you move that generator when 3 men stood there pretending not to see. Her father Elo's face changed slightly. "You remember that?" "I remember everything people do when there is nothing to gain. And what has he done to show he can maintain a home?" There it was. Not romance, not pity, not gossip. The real question. Isaacon folded her hands. "I do not know yet. Then find out before your mouth writes a check your life must pay." She nodded. That same night, Osahon sat alone inside the unfinished house Iwayan had mocked. The building had 2 completed rooms and a roof. The sitting room floor was still bare concrete. The windows had no glass, only wooden shutters. A stack of cement blocks stood against one wall, covered with a tarpaulin. He set the returned cartons near the doorway. Then he placed the mud-stained envelope on the table. For a long time he stared at it. His phone vibrated inside the pocket of his faded trousers. He did not answer immediately. It vibrated again. When he finally picked it up, the screen displayed a name, Amenza. He stepped outside before answering. What is it? A woman Aloe's voice came through the line, controlled but tense. We received another complaint from Ugbovia. 6 farmers say their delivery weights were reduced after the trucks reached the plant. Names? I sent them to the secure folder. Any photographs? 2 weighbridge slips and 1 handwritten farm record. The figures do not match. Osahon looked across the dark field beyond his house. How large is the difference? Between 9 and 12%. His jaw tightened. That is not shrinkage. No, sir. Who approved the collection? Osawe Ekunwe Aloe's department. Silence moved across the line. Amen spoke again. The board is asking when you are returning. They can keep asking. You have been away from the head office for 11 months. I have attended every meeting that required my vote. By video, with your camera off. Then they should listen more carefully to my voice. Amenze exhaled. Sir, there is something else. Osawe is pushing a land development program through the cooperatives. 15-year control agreements, automatic renewal. Farmers are being told they are citing supply contracts. Osahon Aloe's eyes shifted toward the dark outline of his mother, Aloe's land. Has legal approved it? Not in that form. Then, whose form is it? We are tracing the document. Do not alert him. Understood. He was about to end the call when Amenzi said, Are you all right? Osahon looked back through the open doorway at the cartons and the envelope. I am fine. You sound different. A marriage arrangement ended today. Amenze was silent for a moment. I did not know there was one. There is no longer one. I am sorry. Do not be. It answered a question. What question? Osahon stared into the darkness. How quickly respect disappears when profit does. He ended the call. But as he returned inside, another voice followed him. Maybe I will. He had heard Isokun. He had also seen her pick his envelope from the mud. And for reasons he did not want to examine, that small act disturbed him more than Ewan Aloe's rejection. The next morning, Isokun found him beside the Cassava ridge behind his house. The rain had softened the ground. Osahon was pushing a sharpened stick into the soil at measured intervals, marking where new cuttings would go. He saw her before she spoke. You came to carry me home? He asked. There was no smile on his face, but something in his voice almost became one. Isokun folded her arms. Do not become proud. I came to correct what people are saying. And what are they saying? That we are getting married next Saturday. Osahon straightened. Next Saturday? Yes. According to Mama Izigbe, I am already pregnant. According to Ewan, I have been planning this for 2 years. According to your neighbor, you have buried money beneath this farm. Osahon glanced at the ground. I hope nobody begins digging. Isokun tried not to laugh. He set the planting stick aside. What did you come to say? That I defended you yesterday, nothing more. I know, but I also meant what I said. He watched her carefully. Which part? The part about maybe. The morning breeze moved through the cassava leaves behind them. Osahon Aloe's face became still. Isokun, I am not proposing marriage to you. Good. Her eyebrow rose. He continued before she could take offense. You were angry yesterday. People were cruel. Anger can make a person promise a life they have not examined. My father said the same thing. Your father is wise. He also said, I should find out whether you can maintain a home. Osahon looked at his unfinished house. That investigation may finish quickly. She ignored the comment. If you are serious about marriage, not necessarily with me, but with anybody, you should be able to answer basic questions. Ask, what do you earn? He did not expect that to be the first question. Not enough, he said. That is not an answer. I farm. I also do agricultural advisory work when it comes. How much came last month? Osahon paused. There were answers he could give truthfully without opening the entire locked room of his life. From the farm, nothing. From advisory work, 180,000 naira. Her eyes narrowed. That is more than most people here earn in 2 months. It does not come every month. Do you have debt? No personal debt. Children? No. Any woman who may arrive later with a child and a story? No. Do you drink heavily? No. Gamble? No. Beat women? His expression changed. No. She held his gaze. Would a woman be allowed to keep her own work after marrying you? Allowed? Yes. I would not marry a woman to become her prison officer.
That answer is better.
Osahon crossed his arms. Is this how you speak to every man? No. Most men do not reach question 3. This time he smiled. It was brief, but it changed his whole face. Isoken noticed and disliked the fact that she noticed. He asked, what do you earn? Between 90 and 130,000 in a good month. Less when school is closed. I support my father. I have no children. I owe 27,000 naira for fabric. I do not drink. I do not gamble. I have slapped one man in my life. Osahon blinked. Why? He touched me without permission. Only one slap. He fell into a basin of starch water. The basin completed the work. A quiet laugh escaped him. Isoken smiled, despite herself. Then she became serious again. I will not marry because people mocked you, she said. And I will not refuse because they mocked you. We can speak. We can observe. If either of us does not like what we see, we walk away before anybody pays another bride price. Osahon studied her. You make it sound like a business agreement. Marriage without clear terms becomes a business dispute with children inside it. For the first time that morning, he had no reply. They agreed to 6 weeks. Not courtship dressed in fantasy. 6 weeks of questions. 6 weeks of being seen. The first Sunday Osahon visited Pa Agatis. He did not arrive with cartons or an envelope. He brought a bag of oranges and sat on the low veranda chair while the older man examined him like a machine that had arrived without a manual. Why did Ewain leave you? Pa Agatis asked. Her family believed I could no longer provide what they expected. Is that their version or yours? Both. Did you deceive them? Osahon hesitated. It was technically true. He had never told Ewan he was poor. He had allowed her to assume it after he returned to Ugbovia in worn clothes and began working the land himself. He had never told her he was wealthy either, but as he spoke, something in the old man Alo's eyes made the truth feel smaller than honesty. Pa Agatis tapped his walking stick against the floor. My daughter is not a reward for surviving humiliation, he said. She is not a nurse for a wounded ego. If you want her because another woman rejected you, leave now. I do not. If you want her because she defended you, gratitude is not marriage. I know. If you want her because she is hard-working and you think she will carry your poverty without complaint, leave faster. Osahon leaned forward. I do not want anybody to carry me. Then what do you want? The question entered him more deeply than he expected. He looked toward the open doorway where Isoken was measuring fabric for a customer. I want to know her. Pa Agatis followed his gaze. Then do not hide from the questions she asks. The warning sat between them, Osahon heard it. He simply did not obey it soon enough. During the second week, Isaacon took him to the health center. He looked at the signboard, then at her. "What are we doing here?" "Genotype testing." "I know mine. I know mine too." "We are not building a marriage on what people remember from 10 years ago." He did not argue. They tested for genotype, blood group, hepatitis, and other basic conditions recommended by the nurse. Isaacon insisted they collect the results separately and disclose them face to face. Both were AA. Both were relieved. The nurse, an older woman named Mrs. Omarigi, looked at them above her spectacles. "No, you people are smiling now," she said. "Remember that genotype is not the only thing that breaks homes. Discuss money. Discuss children. Discuss where old parents will live. Discuss anger. Love is sweet until two people discover they were planning different lives." Outside the clinic, Isaacon said, "She sounds like my father. Perhaps they attend the same school of frightening young people. They are not frightening us. They are removing excuses." Osahon looked at her. That sentence stayed with him. Removing excuses. During the third week, he showed her the house, not from the doorway. Every room, the unfinished sitting room, the narrow kitchen, the 2 bedrooms, the bathroom with no tiles, the shallow well behind the house that dried during the hottest months. Isaacon inspected the roof, the walls, the distance to the road, and the drainage path. "You built this?" she asked. "With help." "When?" 2 years ago. "Why did you stop?" "I decided the farm needed money first." That was not the only reason. He looked at her. She pointed toward a stack of cement that had hardened inside torn bags. A man who understands planning does not leave cement to die under a leaking tarpaulin. Osahon said nothing. Isaacon walked through the empty sitting room. "You stopped because something inside you stopped." "Oh," she said. He felt the accuracy of it, like a finger pressed against an old bruise. "My engagement before Ewan ended badly," he said. She turned. "How badly?" "She used information I trusted her with to help somebody damage work I had spent years building." "What work?" "A company project." "What company?" "One," I advised. Another answer that was not a lie. Another locked door. Isaacon studied him for a moment. "Did she apologize?" "Only after she was caught. And since then, you have been punishing every new person for what she did." "I have not punished you." "Not yet." The words were not dramatic. That was why they frightened him. By the 5th week, Ossa had repaired Pa Agatis Allo's old generator without asking for payment. By the 6th, Isaacon had watched him disagree with 3 men at the cooperative and still greet them the next morning. She also saw his weaknesses. He could become silent in the middle of a serious conversation and remain there until the other person was tired. He disliked explaining himself. He made decisions alone, then presented them as completed facts. He kept 2 phones and never left either one unattended. Osahon saw hers too. Isaacon carried every family burden as if asking for help would reduce her value. She worked until her fingers cramped. She could forgive a mistake, but not disrespect. When afraid, she became more organized, not less. At the end of 6 weeks, they sat beneath the plantain trees behind her father Allo's house. Pa Agatis remained inside, close enough to hear if voices rose, far enough to pretend he was not listening. Osahon spoke first. "I would like to marry you." Isaacon looked at him. "Why?" "Because you are not impressed by suffering. That is a strange compliment. You do not romanticize poverty. You do not mistake endurance for virtue. You see what is difficult and ask how it can be repaired." She waited. He continued. "You have courage without noise. You protect people without making them indebted to you. You keep records. You ask questions I do not always enjoy, especially those ones. Yes." A smile touched her mouth, then disappeared. "What are you offering?" she asked. "Partnership, fidelity, respect. Whatever I earn will not become a weapon against you. Your work remains yours. Your father remains part of your responsibility. And if we marry, part of mine by agreement, not by favor." She looked down at her hands, and truth? The word entered the space between them. Osahon Alo's heartbeat changed. "Yes," he said. It was the answer he wanted to become worthy of. It was not yet the answer he had fully given. Isoken raised her head. "I accept." There was no crowd to cheer, no music, no rain. Only Pa Agatis Alo's walking stick, and striking the floor inside the house as he muttered, "At least both of them used their heads before using my money." Their wedding was held 7 weeks later at a small church near the old Benin Road. Isoken made her own dress from ivory satin, purchased in 2 installments. She stitched tiny beads along the sleeves at night after completing customers' aloe work. Her friend, Osirus, cooked jollof rice with 3 other women. Pa Agatis borrowed a dark suit that pulled too tightly across his shoulders. Osahon wore a simple navy suit nobody in Ugbovia had seen before. Iwan came. She sat at the back, in a bright red dress, and whispered loudly enough for 3 rows to hear that the suit was probably rented. When the pastor asked whether anybody knew a lawful reason the marriage should not proceed, the church became so quiet that Isoken heard somebody, Alo's plastic fan, stop moving. Iwan shifted in her seat, but she said nothing. Osahon and Isoken signed the marriage register using their true names. No false identity, no hidden certificate, only a hidden scale of wealth that would later become the sharpest wound between them. That evening, they entered the unfinished house together. Rain began before midnight. Water slipped through the gap above the sitting room window and formed a thin stream along the wall. Osahon placed a basin beneath it. Isoken placed another under a second leak. Then she stood in the middle of the bare room and looked around. "This place is unfinished," she said. Osahon leaned against the wall. "So am I." She looked at him for a long moment. "Then we should both stop pretending otherwise." Outside, rain beat against the roof. Inside, 2 people began a life that felt honest. Only one of them knew how much truth was still missing. Marriage did not turn the unfinished house into a home by magic. On their first Monday morning, Isoken placed 3 brown envelopes on the wooden table. Osahon came in from the backyard carrying a basin of cassava cuttings. He stopped when he saw the labels written in blue ink. Food, farm, emergency. "What is this?" he asked. "The beginning of peace." He set the basin down. "Peace looks like envelopes. Peace looks like knowing why money disappeared." She opened the first envelope. "We put feeding money here. Not every kobo we have, but the amount we agree on. The farm gets its own money. Emergency money does not become fertilizer because rain failed." Osahon pulled out a chair. "And your sewing income?" "My business money remains in my business account. I will contribute to the house, but I will not pour everything into this farm and wake up one morning unable to buy thread." He sat. "Do you think I would ask you to do that? I think good people make foolish decisions when pressure enters the room." He looked at the emergency envelope. "How much is inside?" 10,000 naira. That cannot handle a serious emergency." "No, but 0 cannot handle a headache." He nodded slowly. "How much should we target?" 3 months of basic expenses. That will take time. Then we begin before trouble begins. Osahon watched her write the date on the back of each envelope. He had spent years in boardrooms discussing risk reserves, working capital, insurance cover, and contingency planning. Yet the seriousness with which Isoken placed 2,000 naira into the emergency envelope made those polished conversations feel strangely distant. This money had weight. Every note represented a school uniform stitched, a generator repaired, a bag of cassava weeded beneath the sun. Nothing about it was theoretical. "Your machine needs servicing," he said. "I know. How much?" 8,000. "I will pay." "No." He frowned. "It benefits the house. It is still my business equipment. If you pay, we record it as a loan or a gift. We do not leave money without a name." He leaned back. "You really do not allow anything to move without records. I have watched too many women build houses with invisible money, then get told they contributed nothing." That answer silenced him. They agreed it would be a gift. Isoken wrote it down. The first month was not romantic in the way songs described marriage. It was practical. They woke before daylight. Osahon worked the farm until the heat became heavy. Isoken opened her sewing stall beside the market at 8. She returned in the afternoon with thread caught on her dress and stories collected from customers who believed a sewing table was a confessional. At night, they ate on enamel plates beneath a rechargeable lamp. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they quarreled over small things that were not small at all. Osahon left muddy boots near the doorway. Isoken moved them outside. He returned them to the doorway because he feared rain. She placed a plastic basin beside the wall and told him marriage was not an excuse to turn the sitting room into farmland. Isoken worked past midnight. Osahon switched off her lamp one night and told her to sleep. She switched it back on and asked whether he planned to finish 6 uniforms before morning. He apologized. The next day, he built her a better cutting table from leftover planks. They did not become perfect. They became familiar. That was more valuable. When it was time to plant, Isoken expected Osahon to buy whatever cassava stems were cheapest in the village. Instead, he took her to an agricultural input dealer outside Ekpoma. He asked for the source records, variety name, disease tolerance, and expected maturity period. The dealer looked surprised. "Brother, they are cassava sticks," the man said. "Put them in ground. God will do the rest." "God also gave you receipts," Osahon replied. "Bring one." Isoken turned away to hide her smile. They bought fewer cuttings than the dealer wanted them to buy, but they knew where the materials came from. Osahon also paid for a soil test through an extension officer named Mr. Ehigiator. When the man arrived with sample bags and a narrow auger, 3 neighbors gathered beside the farm. One of them, Okunbo, laughed. "Osahon, your father and grandfather planted here without carrying soil to laboratory. And how much did they harvest?" Osahon asked. Okunbo scratched his chin. "That is not the matter. It is exactly the matter." The extension officer took samples from different points, rather than one convenient spot. He labeled each bag and explained that soil could vary across the same field. Isoken listened carefully. "So if one side is weak, we should not pour the same thing everywhere?" she asked. "Correct," Mr. Ehigiator said. "Input without information can become expensive waste." Osahon glanced at her. She had already opened her notebook. By evening, half the village knew the useless farmer was testing soil as if he owned a research station. Ewain heard too. She came to Isoken Alo's stall the next morning, carrying a blouse that did not need repair. She placed it on the table. "The sleeve is loose," she said. Isoken examined it. "The sleeve is fine. Tighten it. I can, but it may pull when you raise your arm." Ewan sat on the bench without being invited. "I heard your husband is spending money on soil." He paid for a test. "For what?" "To confirm that ground is ground." Isoken marked the blouse with chalk. "If you came to discuss him, the consultation fee is higher than sewing." Ewan smiled. "You are already defending every foolish thing he does. I am explaining nothing to you. You will, one day, when hunger begins to ask questions." Isoken raised her eyes. Did hunger ask you to return his bride price in public? The smile disappeared. Iwayan stood. You think you won something because you carried what I rejected. Isoken folded the blouse. No. I think you are still checking whether what you rejected has become valuable. Ewan Alo's jaw tightened. She snatched the blouse and left without paying. The exchange reached the market before noon, but the story changed as it traveled. By the time it reached Chief Osaji, Isoken had supposedly claimed Osahon was about to become the richest farmer in Edo State. Rumor did not need evidence in Ugbovia. It only needed hunger. 2 weeks later, Madam Itohan Eramoseli announced a cooperative meeting. Madam Itohan had led the Ugbovia Cassava Growers Cooperative for 6 years. She was a large woman with a smooth voice and a habit of calling everybody my people. Before presenting a decision they had not helped make. She wore white lace to meetings, even during planting season, and carried a handbag too expensive for the market stall she claimed was her only business. That Saturday, almost every farmer came. A white pickup truck stood near the hall with the green and gold logo of Osima Integrated Foods printed on the door. Isoken noticed Osahon slow when he saw it, only for a second. Then his face became unreadable. Inside the hall, Madam Itahan stood beside a tall man wearing a pale grey kaftan and polished brown shoes. My people, she began. Today is a day of favor. The tall man smiled. This is Mr. Osahe Ekunwe, Director of Procurement and Community Development at Osima Integrated Foods. Applause moved through the room. Osima Foods operated one of the largest cassava processing plants in the area. It bought fresh roots, produced industrial starch, and supplied flour blends to manufacturers across southern Nigeria. Its trucks were common on the roads, but senior officials rarely visited villages themselves. Osawe stepped forward. We are not here to take from Ugbovia, he said. We are here to grow with Ugbovia. Osahon Alo's hand tightened around the plastic chair beneath him. Isoken saw it. Osawe continued. Our new partnership will provide improved planting materials, land preparation, guaranteed purchase, and access to credit. No farmer will suffer alone again. The room responded with approving murmurs. Madam Itohan lifted a stack of documents. All you need is a signature or thumbprint. A farmer near the front raised his hand. How much will they buy per ton? Osawe smiled. The rate will follow market conditions. What rate is inside the paper? Osahon asked. Heads turned. Oso looked across the room. Your name? Osahon Edeki. Mr. Edeki, market prices change. We cannot trap farmers inside an outdated figure. Can farmers refuse delivery if the rate falls below their cost? A faint line appeared between Osawe Alo's brows. The company is offering security. That did not answer the question, madam. Itohan laughed lightly. Osahon, let the man finish. You have not even harvested your own small plot. Some people laughed. Oso smiled with them. A man who cannot finish his own house wants to teach us contract law. The laughter grew. Isoken looked at Osahon. He did not react to the insult. He stood and walked toward the table. May I see the agreement? Osawe placed one copy in his hand with exaggerated patience. Read it. Perhaps you will discover something our legal team missed. Osahon did not read every word. His eyes moved directly to the definitions, duration, control provisions, and dispute clause. The room quietened. After less than 2 minutes, he looked up. This is not only a supply agreement. Madam Itohan Alo's smile weakened. What do you mean? It gives the company management control over registered farmland for 15 years. Murmurs rose. Osawe lifted a hand. That is standard support language. It renews automatically unless the farmer gives notice 12 months before expiry. It protects long-term investment. The company may deduct land preparation, transport, input, storage, quality adjustment, and administrative charges before paying the farmer. That is normal commercial practice. The farmer cannot sell to another buyer, but the company is not required to purchase any minimum quantity. The room changed. People stopped listening with hope and began listening with fear. Osahon held up the paper. And disputes must be handled through private arbitration in Benin City, with costs shared equally. A widow named Mama Nosakare spoke from the second row. What is arbitration? Osoe turned toward her. It is simply a peaceful way to solve disagreement. How much will it cost? Osahon asked. Osohealo's eyes returned to him. That depends. On whether the farmer can afford justice? The hall erupted. Madame Itohan struck the table with her palm. My people, do not let one man confuse you. This company is bringing progress. Osahon placed the agreement flat before her. Then explain every clause in language people understand. Give each farmer a copy. Allow them to take it home. Allow independent advice. Do not describe a 15-year land control agreement as a simple purchase guarantee. Osohealo's smile vanished. You are accusing us of deception. I am saying a signature is not consent when the person signing was not told what the paper truly means. Silence fell. Isoken felt something cold move through her, not because Osahon was wrong, because he was too precise. He did not sound like a man who had once glanced at contracts while doing occasional advisory work. He sounded like somebody who had written them, fought over them, perhaps approved them. Madame Itohan gathered the documents. The meeting is suspended, she announced. We will continue after misunderstandings have been corrected. Farmers crowded around Osahon as they left. What does this part mean? Can they take my land? Is it sale? Should I sign? He refused to answer carelessly. Do not sign today, he told them. Take a copy. Ask questions. If you cannot read, find somebody who can explain without benefiting from your signature. Outside, Osoe stood beside the white pickup. His eyes followed Osahon across the compound. He removed his phone and typed a message. Isoken saw him. She also saw Osahon notice. That evening, while they prepared Iba in the kitchen, she asked, Which company did you advise? Osohealo's hand paused over the pot of soup. What? The company project your former fiancé damaged. Which company was it? He set the spoon down. Why are you asking now? Because Ososoe looked at you, as if he was trying to remember where he had seen you. He has not seen me. That is not what I asked. Osahon wiped his hand on a cloth. I worked on agricultural supply systems. For Osima Foods. His silence lasted half a second too long. Yes. Isoken leaned against the counter. In what position? Advisory. What kind? Strategy. Procurement design. Farmer engagement. She stared at him. You designed systems for a company that has now brought a contract you say may trap farmers. Not this system. Not this system. How do you know? Because I know what was approved. The room became quiet. Isoken lowered her voice. Approved by whom? Osahon looked away. There it was again, the door closing. She folded her arms. You said, truth was part of what you were offering. It is. No. What you are offering is information after I drag it out of you. That agreement may involve an internal breach. I need to understand it before I say more. More to whom? Me or the company? Both. Why would the company listen to you? He did not answer. Isohealo's face tightened. You ask me to build a home with you, she said. But every time I touch a wall, I find another locked door. Osahon took a step toward her. I am not trying to deceive you. Then stop giving me answers designed by a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. That is not the comforting part you think it is. For a moment, neither spoke. The soup bubbled between them. Finally, Osahon said, Give me time. For what? To confirm what is happening. And when you finished confirming, I will explain everything that concerns us. Isoken held his gaze. Everything already concerns us. She turned off the stove and walked out. Osahon remained in the kitchen, staring at the steam rising from the pot. His phone vibrated. Amenzi, he answered in a whisper. Speak. We traced the cooperative agreement, she said. It was drafted by an outside firm retained through Osoe Alo's department. Legal rejected the first version. The version being circulated is almost identical. Who authorized distribution? We do not know yet. Freeze any new land development payments connected to Ugbovia. I can recommend a hold. I cannot freeze it without your written instruction. Then you have it. Sir, Oso has requested a meeting with the executive chairman. Osahon looked toward the doorway. Isoken had just passed through. He can keep requesting. Amenza hesitated. There is another issue. If you intervene formally, people will ask why the chairman has detailed knowledge of one village. Let them ask. And your wife? Osahon became still. Amenza continued carefully. You told me you married. Does she know who you are? No. The silence on the line sharpened. Sir, do not begin. I will not interfere in your marriage. But an undisclosed identity that can alter another person's financial and legal decisions is not a small omission. I know. Do you? The question sounded too much like Isoken. Osahon ended the call. The next morning, Isoken opened her stall before sunrise. She did not wake him. At the market, 3 customers cancelled orders. The first claimed she had found a cheaper tailor. The second said her husband did not want their money, entering Naland trouble. The third simply collected her fabric and refused to meet Isoken Elo's eyes. By 10:00 Alaclock, Ewayan had taken a seat at the palm oil seller Elo's stall across the path. She was not buying oil. She was watching. Isoken continued working. Tack, 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 tack. At noon, Mama Nosakari approached with a folded weighbridge slip. My daughter, the widow said. Can you help me check something? Isoken cleared space on the table. Mama Nosakari placed 2 papers beside each other. One was a handwritten field record made by her grandson when their cassava roots were loaded. The other was the printed receipt from Osema Alo's collection point. The difference was 840 kilograms. Could the roots have lost water? Isoken asked. In 2 hours? Did they reject any? No. Was the truck carrying somebody else Alo's cassava? No. Isoken wrote down the date, truck number, and both weights. Do you have the payment alert? Mama Nosakare showed her phone. The amount matched the lower weight, then included 3 deductions she could not explain. Transport recovery, quality adjustment, administrative support. How much did they tell you transport would cost? Isoken asked. They said company truck was part of assistance. Isoken stared at the words. By evening, 4 more women had brought slips. By the end of the week, there were 11. Isoken bought a large ruled ledger and began recording every delivery. Date, farmer, farm weight, factory weight, price announced, price paid, deductions, truck number, driver, witness. Osahon found the ledger on their table one night. He turned the pages slowly. Where did you get these figures? People brought them. Who knows you are keeping this? The people whose money is missing. This may become dangerous. Isoken looked at him. For whom? Anybody interfering with a profitable system. She closed the ledger beneath his hand. Then tell me what system I am interfering with. He remained silent. Her voice softened, but the softness carried more pain than anger. You know why Osoe is doing this? I suspect. You know who can stop him? Yes. And you still will not tell me why that person might listen to you. Osahon released the ledger. I need evidence that cannot be dismissed. So I am evidence now? No. Then what am I? He looked at her. My wife. Your wife is not a title you use when the truth becomes uncomfortable. She picked up the ledger and walked into the bedroom. That night, they lay on opposite sides of the mattress. Neither slept. Outside, insects sang in the wet grass. Inside, the distance between them was less than 1 arm, aloe's length, and wider than the village road. The next afternoon, Osowe returned to Ugobovia. This time, he did not come smiling. He entered Madame Itohan Aloe's compound, closed the gate, and remained there for almost 2 hours. When he left, he drove past Isokan Aloe's stall slowly. The white pickup stopped. The window lowered. "Mrs. Edeki," he called. Isokan did not leave her machine. "Yes, I hear you are collecting private company documents." "I am collecting farmers' aloe receipts." "Those receipts contain confidential information. They contain people Aloe's missing money." Osowe smiled, but his eyes did not. "You are a seamstress. Do not allow your husband Aloe's bitterness to carry you into matters you do not understand." Isokan lifted the ledger from beneath the table and placed it where he could see. "You are correct," she said. "I do not understand how honest business works in your office." Osowe Aloe's smile returned. "But I understand subtraction." The smile disappeared. He leaned closer to the window. "Be careful." "With numbers?" "With people more powerful than you." The pickup moved away. Isokan watched dust rise behind it. Then, she opened the ledger and wrote down the time of the conversation. Across the market, Ewan had heard everything. Before sunset, the village had a new rumor. Isokan had discovered hidden value in Osahon Aloe's land. She was collecting records to force Ozima Foods into paying them millions. She had married him because she knew something nobody else knew. The accusation spread because it comforted people. It was easier to believe Isokan was calculating than to accept that she had chosen a man they had discarded. At home that night, Osahon read the new message Amenze sent. Photographs of altered weighbridge logs. A list of payments to a transport company called Ekunwe Rural Logistics. A note showing the company belonged to Osowe Aloe's brother-in-law. And one final document. A safety report from Ugbovia Collection Shed 3. Constructural fascia risk. Immediate closure recommended. Osahon called Amenze. Why is Shed 3 still operating? It should not be. Who overrode the closure? We are checking. Check faster. I have sent the warning to operations. Send it again and copy me. Sir. Formal intervention will expose you. Osahon looked toward the bedroom, where Isokan Aloe's lamp still shone beneath the door. Then perhaps exposure is overdue. But before he could send the written instruction, power went out across Ugbovia. His network disappeared with it, and by morning, the first trucks were already entering Shed 3. The morning began with thunder. Dark clouds gathered over Ugbovia before 6, but the trucks came anyway. By 7, 3 lorries loaded with fresh cassava roots were parked around Collection Shed 3. Men shouted above reversing alarms. Women moved between piles of produce with wrappers tied tightly around their waists. The old warehouse roof trembled whenever wind crossed the open yard. Osahon arrived on a motorcycle shortly after 8. He had spent the first hour of daylight trying to send Amenze Aloe's message through an unstable network. When it finally went, he did not wait for confirmation. He dressed, told Isokan he was going to the collection point, and left before she could ask why. Now he stood outside the gate, staring at the faded red warning mark painted near the main pillar. The crack beneath it had widened. A young loading clerk named Osamudiaman waved him back. "Farmers should wait outside until weighing," the boy said. "Where is your supervisor?" "Inside. This building was recommended for closure." Osamudiaman looked confused. "By who?" "A structural engineer." The boy laughed nervously. "Sir, we used it yesterday. That is not evidence. It is safe today." Osahon walked past him. Inside, the air smelled of wet cassava diesel, and old timber. A forklift moved slowly between stacked bags. Water dripped from 2 points in the roof. Workers had placed empty drums beneath the leaks. The site supervisor, Mr. Uyi, stood beside the weighbridge desk signing papers. Osahon approached him. "Stop loading." Uyi glanced up. "Who are you?" "This shed has an unresolved structural warning." Uyi looked him over. The faded shirt, farm boots, mud on his trousers. "You villagers have started again. First contract, now warehouse. I am not debating you. Evacuate the building." Uyi slapped the paper he was holding against the desk. "Ogre, do you know what delay costs? We have 40 tons outside. If rain spoils these roots, will you pay? If this roof comes down, what will you pay?" Workers nearby slowed. Uyi Alo's face hardened. "Leave before I call security." Osahon removed his phone and opened the report Armenzes had sent. He held up the screen. Report number UF31YT. Main support corrosion. Lateral movement. Immediate closure recommended 3 weeks ago. Uyi stared at the phone. "How did you get that?" "That is not your urgent problem." A deep, metallic groan traveled through the roof. Everybody heard it. The forklift driver stopped. For 1 second, the building became completely still. Then rain struck the zinc sheets in a hard, sudden wave. Osahon turned toward the workers. "Everybody out!" Uyi shouted, "Nobody should move. We will lose the loading sequence." Another groan came from above. This one was longer. A bolt dropped from the roof and struck the concrete floor. Workers scattered. The forklift driver jumped down. 2 women ran toward the side entrance. Osamudiaman stood near a stack of cassava sacks. "Frozen, move!" Osahon shouted. The boy looked up. A roof truss twisted. Osahon ran. He reached Osamudiaman and pushed him toward the open loading bay just as the first sheet of zinc tore free. Wind entered the gap. The roof lifted, slammed down, and pulled one of the weakened support columns sideways. The sound was not like thunder. It was heavier, more final. Concrete split near the base of the wall. Osahon shoved the boy through the opening. Then part of the block wall collapsed across his side. Everything disappeared into dust. At the market, Isoken heard the explosion of voices before she saw anybody running. A woman came from the direction of the plant road, barefoot, calling for help. "The company shed has fallen." Isoken Alo's needle stopped. Something inside her knew before anybody spoke his name. She stood so quickly the stool fell. "Who is inside?" "Workers. Farmers, I don't know." "Osahon." The woman looked at her. That look answered first. Isoken ran. She did not lock the stall. She did not collect her bag. She ran through the rain with her wrapper, striking her legs and red mud, pulling at her slippers. By the time she reached the collection yard, men had formed a line to remove broken blocks and roofing sheets. Somebody had brought ropes. Somebody else was shouting for a jack. The side of Shed 3 had folded inward. Isoken pushed through the crowd. "Where is my husband?" Nobody answered. She caught Osamudiaman by the shoulders. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. "Where is he?" The boy Alo's lips trembled. "He pushed me out." "Where?" He pointed toward the collapsed wall. Isoken moved before anybody could stop her. A man grabbed her arm. "Madam, you cannot enter." "That is my husband. The wall may still fall." "Then remove your hand." Something in her voice made him obey. She climbed across wet cassava roots, broken wood, and twisted metal. Dust mixed with rain until mud ran along the floor. Then she saw a hand. Not moving. Osahon. 3 men rushed toward her. Together they lifted a concrete block enough to pull him free. He was conscious, but barely. Blood darkened his shirt near the ribs. His breathing came in short, shallow pulls. Isoken dropped beside him. "Look at me." His eyes opened. "Do not talk. The boy? He is alive." Only then did his face loosen. She pressed folded fabric against the wound, where a sharp edge had cut him. "Call an ambulance!" she shouted. Yi stood near the gate holding his phone. "The company emergency vehicle is in Benin. Call the health center. They do not have an ambulance. Then find a vehicle." Rainwater streamed down her face. People looked at one another. The company pickup had left before the roof fully collapsed. One lorry was loaded too heavily. Another had a mechanical fault. The tricycles outside refused to enter the muddy yard. Madame Itahan arrived beneath a large umbrella. "What happened?" she demanded. Isoken stared at her. "What happened is that the building your partners were using has fallen on people." Madame Itohan Alo's eyes moved to Osahon. "We should not make accusations now. Then make a vehicle available. The cooperative does not have one. You collected development fees from every farmer last month. That money is committed. To what? This is not the time. It is exactly the time." Osahon groaned. Isoken turned back to him. His skin had become cold beneath the rain. She looked at the crowd. "Anybody with a tricycle, I will pay fuel." Nobody moved. She raised her voice. "I said I will pay." A driver near the gate shook his head. "The road is bad. My machine can spoil." Isoken removed her wedding earrings. They were small gold-plated pieces, not worth much, but she held them out. "Take these as security." The driver looked away. Then Mama Nosakare pushed through the crowd. "Use my grandson, Alo's tricycle," she said. "If it spoils, we will repair it later." A second woman stepped forward. "I have 5,000. Another raised her hand. "Take 3,000 from me." Within minutes, the women whose receipts Isoken had recorded produced enough cash for fuel and the first hospital deposit. Not charity. Reciprocity. The young driver spread a tarpaulin across the tricycle bed. 4 men lifted Osahon carefully. Isoken climbed in beside him, supporting his head against her lap. Before they left, she pointed at Uyi. "Do not move any record from that office." He stared at her. "You think about papers now." "I am thinking about why my husband warned you before this building fell." The tricycle carried them through the rain. At the primary health center, Mrs. Omaregi and another nurse examined Osahon quickly. His blood pressure was low. His abdomen was rigid. One side of his chest moved differently from the other. "He needs imaging and surgery assessment," the nurse said. "We cannot manage this here." "Where?" "Central Specialist Hospital in Ekpoma." "How do we move him?" We are calling for an ambulance from the local government pool." "How long?" The nurse did not answer immediately. "How long?" Isoken repeated. "Possibly 40 minutes. Possibly more." Isoken closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she opened the emergency envelope she had grabbed from the house on their way past. Inside was 86,000 naira. They had built it slowly. 2,000 here, 5,000 there. Money that could not handle a serious emergency, Osahon had once said. But 0 could not handle a headache. That envelope paid for oxygen, initial medication, and the balance needed to convince a private transport provider to release an ambulance immediately. As the vehicle doors closed, Isoken climbed in. Osahon opened his eyes. "Phone," he whispered. "What? My phone. It is here. Call Amens." Isoken froze. The name was familiar. She had seen it flash on his screen many times. "Who is she?" "Call." His eyes closed again. Isoken unlocked the phone using the code he murmured. The contact was saved under one name. Amens Uwifer. Compliance. Not friend, not client. Compliance. Isoken pressed the call button. The woman answered before the second ring. "Sir? This is his wife." Silence. "His wife? He has been injured." "A warehouse wall fell on him." "What warehouse?" "Osima Collection Shed 3 in Ugbovia." Amenzi inhaled sharply. "Where are you taking him?" "Central Specialist Hospital. I am on my way." The line ended. Isoken stared at the screen. No questions about who she was. No request for proof. Only immediate movement. At the hospital, everything happened quickly. Orderlies moved Osahon onto a trolley. A doctor asked Isoken when the injury occurred, whether he had lost consciousness, whether he had taken any medication, whether he had allergies. She answered what she knew. What she did not know, she said she did not know. A clerk at the admissions desk asked for his full name. Osahon Hideki. Date of birth? She gave it. Occupation. Isoken hesitated. Farmer. Agricultural advisor. The clerk entered the details. The screen changed. She looked at Isoken, then back at the screen. Madam, does he have an executive health plan? I do not know. His record is showing Osima Corporate Platinum. Isoken felt the corridor shift beneath her. That cannot be correct. The clerk turned the monitor slightly, not enough to reveal private details, only the bold company name. Osema Integrated Foods Executive Cover. Before Isoken could speak, a woman in a dark green suit entered the emergency reception with 2 men behind her. She moved quickly, but not carelessly. Her hair was cut short. A company identification card hung from her neck. She stopped in front of Isoken. Mrs. Hideki, who are you? Amenze Uwaifo, head of compliance at Osema Integrated Foods. Isoken looked at the identification card, then at her face. How do you know my husband? Amenze. Alo's expression changed. The doctor emerged before she could answer. Mrs. Hideki? Isoken turned immediately. Your husband has several fractured ribs, a collapsed lung, and signs of internal bleeding. We need to take him into theater. Will he survive? We are doing everything necessary. We need consent. Soken signed. Her hand did not shake until after the doctor left. Amenze moved closer. His care will be fully covered. Isoken looked at her. By the company? Yes. Why? Amenze glanced toward the theater doors. This is not the best place. It is the only place I have. Mrs. Hideki, the man I carried here is my husband. I have spent months counting coins beside him. I have watched him plant cassava with his own hands. I have listened to your director threaten me. Now a hospital computer says my husband has executive insurance from that same company. Her voice did not rise. That made every word sharper. Tell me why. Amenze looked at the 2 men who had come with her. Give us space, she said. They moved away. Amenze sat beside a Isoken on the metal bench. Your husband worked with Osima Foods, she began. I know that part. He did not only advise it. Isoken Alo's fingers closed around the emergency envelope, still resting in her lap. Amenze continued. Osahon founded the company 14 years ago. Isoken stared at her. No. He remains the controlling shareholder and executive chairman. No. No. I am sorry you are hearing it here. No. The word came again, smaller now. Not denial. Impact. Amenze did not push. Isoken looked through the glass doors leading toward the operating theater. That company? She whispered. The factory buying our cassava? Yes. The contracts? Were not authorized in the form circulated. The missing weights? We are investigating. And he knew he suspected. He returned to Ugbovia to investigate complaints quietly. Isoken turned slowly, returned. His mother was from the village. He has legal rights to the land where you live. How rich is he? Amenze hesitated. The company is worth several billion naira. His personal position is substantial. Isoken looked down at the emergency envelope. The paper had become soft from rain and handling. How many times? She asked. Did he watch me count coins while knowing one phone call could change everything? Amenze said nothing. How many? I do not know. Did he tell you he married me? Only after the wedding. He gave no details. Did you know we were living in that house? I knew he was staying there. I did not know what he had told you. Isoken laughed once. There was no humor in it. He told me he earned 180,000 naira from advisory work. Amenza closed her eyes briefly. That payment was probably a director, ILO's expense reimbursement, he redirected. So even the amount was arranged. I cannot defend that. Do not, the words came quickly. Please do not explain his reasons to me, as if reasons can turn a lie into something clean. Amenza nodded. You are right. Why did he do it? Partly the investigation. Partly because his former fiancée betrayed confidential information and helped a procurement executive manipulate a major contract. It damaged the company and almost destroyed him personally. So he decided every woman after her must enter an examination hall? I do not know what he decided. You work in compliance? Yes. Then answer me as a compliance officer. Did he give me enough information to make an informed choice? Amenzelo's face became very still. The answer broke something, not loudly. Isaacin did not cry. She did not shout. She did not tear off her wedding ring. She simply sat with her back against the hospital wall and felt every memory change shape. The soil test. The contract meeting. His knowledge of the safety report. The second phone. The money that came when advisory work came. The unfinished house. Even his silence had been wealthy. He had always possessed the option to open a door. She had been the only one who believed the wall was real. After 3 hours, Dr. Idahosa Egarevba came out of theater. The surgery went well, he said. We controlled the internal bleeding and placed a chest drain. He will need close monitoring, but he is stable. Isaacin breathed for what felt like the first time that day. Can I see him briefly after recovery? The doctor glanced at Amenze and the company men. Also, this injury must be recorded as an occupational or site-related incident. I do not care what private arrangements exist. The history must remain accurate. Amenze nodded. It will. One of the men behind her began, Doctor, perhaps we can handle. Dr. Idahosa turned. You can handle your company. We will handle the medical record. The man fell silent. Isaacin looked at the doctor. For the first time since the reveal, somebody had drawn a line that money could not move. That mattered. While Osahon remained unconscious, Amenze opened her laptop and showed Isaacin only what she was authorized to show. A photograph from an old annual report. Osahon in a dark suit, standing beside the first Osima processing line. He looked younger, harder, and completely at home among executives. A corporate profile naming him founder. Board filings. A public photograph of him receiving an industry award 8 years earlier. Before he withdrew from public events. He was not a celebrity everybody would recognize. The company brand did not carry his surname. Recent interviews featured the managing director, not him. His withdrawal had made invisibility possible. But he had not become poor. He had become hidden. Did Chief Oseji know? Isaacin asked. No Owen? No Madam Itohan? Almost certainly not. Osowe may have recognized him recently, but we do not yet know when. Isaacin looked at the image again. The man in the suit and the man who slept beside her were the same person. That was the worst part. If he had been entirely false, anger would have been easier. But the kindness had been real. The work had been real. The evenings, the laughter, the way he repaired her cutting table, the way he helped her father into church, all real. And so was the deception. Near midnight, Osahon regained consciousness. Isaacin was allowed into the high-dependency room for 5 minutes. Machines whispered around him. A clear tube ran from his chest. His face had lost color. When he saw her, relief entered his eyes. Isaacin. She stood beside the bed. Do not try to sit. His gaze searched her face. You know, it was not a question. Yes, he closed his eyes. I wanted to tell you. She felt anger rise so cleanly that it almost steadied her. Do not begin with what you wanted. He opened his eyes again. I was trying to protect the investigation. You were married to me, not investigating me. I know. No. You know now because the wall fell before your plan finished. Pain crossed his face, but she did not know whether it came from the injury or the truth. I did not know whom to trust. He whispered. You trusted me with your food, your body, your home, and your name. You simply did not trust me with the facts that could allow me to choose freely. I was afraid. So was I. The difference is that you knew what I was afraid of. I did not even know the real danger. A nurse glanced through the glass. Their time was ending. Osahon Alo's voice weakened. I am sorry. Isoken looked at the man she loved. The man who had saved a worker. The man whose company had nearly killed him. The man who had promised truth while deciding how much of it she deserved. You keep explaining why you hid, she said. I am asking whether you understand what hiding did to me. He stared at her. For once he had no prepared answer. Isoken stepped back. Recover, she said. We will discuss the rest when you can speak without machines helping you breathe. She left before he could call her back. In the corridor, Amenzes stood waiting. A company vehicle can take you to the guest house, she said. Isoken looked through the glass doors at the black SUV parked outside. No, it is late. I will stay near the hospital. We have already arranged a suite. I said no. Amenzi nodded. Isoken sat on the metal bench, opened her phone and called Pa Agatis. When he answered, she heard the fear in his voice. How is he? Alive? Thank God. Papa, yes? My husband owns Osima Foods. The line became silent. Then Pa Agatis asked one question. Did you know before today? No. Then do not allow anybody to tell you what to feel because he is injured. Isoken closed her eyes. Her father continued. You can pray for his life and still hold him responsible for what he did to yours. That night, she remained in the hospital corridor, not as a poor woman waiting to become rich, not as a grateful wife beside a powerful man, as Isoken Agatise Adeki, a woman who had just discovered that the greatest danger to her marriage was not poverty. It was a truth withheld by the person who had promised to protect it. Osahon spent 9 days in the hospital. The first 3 passed beneath medication, pain, and the slow work of breathing. By the 4th, he could sit with support. By the 6th, the chest drain had been removed. By the 9th, Dr. Idahosa agreed he could leave under strict conditions. Isoken visited every day. She brought food when the doctor allowed it. She helped him walk the corridor. She listened when the physiotherapist explained breathing exercises and wrote down the medication schedule. She did not abandon him. She also did not pretend nothing had happened. Their conversations remained practical. Your tablets are at 6. The doctor said no lifting. Breathe into the device 10 times. Whenever Osahon tried to discuss the marriage, she stopped him. Recover enough to understand your own words, she said. I will not have this conversation while pain is speaking for you. That boundary unsettled him more than anger would have. He had spent years controlling timing. Meetings began when he entered. Contracts waited for his signature. Executives adjusted their calendars to his recovery. Isoken did not. On the morning of his discharge, a black SUV waited outside with a driver. Amenze had arranged a serviced apartment in Ekpoma for his recovery. Isoken stood beside the vehicle holding his medication bag. I am returning to my father Alo's house, she said. Osahon Alo's hand tightened around his walking support. For how long? I do not know. Isoken, you need medical care. The company can provide it. I need space where every chair and plate does not suddenly look like part of a performance. The house was not a performance. It was a choice you made without allowing me to understand the choice I was making. I lived there before you. That does not make the silence honest. The driver looked away. Ozahon lowered his voice. Will you come back? I will come to discuss what must be discussed. Do not confuse that with a promise about the outcome. She placed the medication bag inside the car. Then she turned to Amenze. The records from Shed 3, secured by an independent forensic team. Who appointed them? The audit committee, after the board held an emergency meeting. Does Osor still have access? Suspended pending review. Suspended is not convicted. Correct. Isoken nodded. That answer mattered too. She had no interest in replacing one unfair process with another, simply because the accused man had threatened her. The SUV carried Osahon away. Isoken boarded a public bus. By the time she reached Ugbovia, the story had arrived before her. Only it was no longer the truth. According to one version, Isoken had known Osahon Alo's identity before the wedding and helped him pretend to be poor. According to another, she had discovered his secret after marriage and threatened to expose him unless he transferred company shares. A third claimed the warehouse collapsed because Ozahon and Isoken entered a restricted area to steal documents. The most damaging version came from an anonymous voice note shared through WhatsApp groups. In it, a man alleged that Isoken had seduced a traumatized businessman while he was hiding in the village, isolated him from company advisors, and created false records to remove senior executives. The speaker never gave his name. He did not need to. By afternoon, Ewan had forwarded the recording to half the women in Ugbovia. Isoken discovered this when she reopened her stall. No customers came. At 2:00 a stone struck the side of the wooden table. She looked up and saw 2 teenage boys running. At 3, somebody had written "Gold Digger" across the market wall behind her stall with charcoal. Isoken stared at the words. When she was believed to have married a poor man, they called her foolish. When they discovered he was rich, they called her calculating. The facts changed. The judgment remained. She found a bucket, mixed soap in water, and began scrubbing the wall. Mama Nosakara arrived carrying the ledger. I kept it safe, the widow said. Isoken stopped scrubbing. You took it? When the shed fell, I went to your stall. I knew people might search. She handed over the book wrapped in plastic. Isoken opened it. Dry. Intact. You should not have placed yourself in danger. Mama Nosakare clicked her tongue. You entered a falling warehouse for your husband, but I cannot carry book. That is not the same. It is exactly the same foolishness. Only mine has fewer broken ribs. For the first time in days, Isoken laughed. The widow sat beside her. My daughter, people are saying many things. I know. Do you want us to stop bringing records? Isoken looked at the ledger. No, good. Because my money did not become correct because your husband became rich. That sentence returned Isoken to the center of herself. The marriage was wounded. The evidence was not. She took a clean page and wrote the date. Then the women began to come. Not all of them. Some were afraid. Some believed the rumors. Some had relatives employed by Madame Itohan, but 12 women came that week, then 18. They did not discuss Osahon Alo's wealth. They discussed numbers. Isoken taught each person to keep 3 records: what left the farm, what arrived at the collection point, what entered the bank account. If you do not understand a deduction, she told them, write it down. Do not be ashamed to ask. Confusion is where dishonest people hide. At the same time, Osawe began his counterattack. He held a press briefing in Benin City through his lawyer. He denied authorizing unsafe operations. He claimed the warehouse report had not reached him. He suggested Osahon Alo's secret presence in Ugbovia created an unclear command structure. He accused unnamed persons close to the chairman of manipulating community grievances to support an internal power struggle. Madame Itahan supported him publicly. She told a local radio program that Ugbovia had enjoyed a peaceful relationship with Osima Foods until outsiders and emotional family issues entered the matter. Isoken heard the interview while repairing a trouser zip. The presenter asked, "Are you saying Mrs. Hideki fabricated the farmers' aloe figures?" Madame Itohan replied, "I am saying a Taylor Elo's notebook is not an audited account." Isoken switched off the radio. That evening, Amenze arrived at Pa Agatise Alo's house with an external auditor named Mrs. Eziosa Omoruyi and a lawyer from the Farmers' Aloe Legal Aid Network. They sat on the veranda. Amenze did not bring company gifts. She brought document bags, consent forms, and 2 voice recorders. "We would like to examine the ledger," Mrs. Omarui said. "But only with the farmers' aloe permission. The company does not own their personal records." Isoken appreciated the distinction. "What will happen to the book?" "We scan it in your presence, number each page, and return the original. We will compare entries with weighbridge data, payment records, transport logs, and moisture adjustments. What if the company data has been changed? We look for backups, access history, printed copies, driver records, and bank transfers. Fraud rarely exists in only one place." Pa Agatis, who had listened quietly, asked, "And if your chairman is responsible?" Amenze answered before anybody else. "Then the evidence must show it." The old man nodded. "At least one person in that company understands her work." They scanned the ledger until almost midnight. The following week, auditors interviewed farmers one by one. They compared handwritten load estimates with truck capacity, field measurements, and independent buyer records. They recovered deleted weighbridge entries from a local backup. They traced deductions to codes that had never been approved by finance. The pattern became clear. Weights had been reduced after arrival. Transport charges were deducted even when farmers had already paid drivers. Quality penalties appeared without test results. Administrative charges moved into an account controlled by a community development contractor. That contractor had paid Madame Itahan several consultancy fees. Ikunwe Rural Logistics, the company owned by Osowe Alo's brother-in-law, received inflated transport payments. The safety report for Shed 3 had been opened from Osowe Alo's office account, forwarded to Uyi, then marked hold until peak intake ends. Uyi had not invented the decision, he had obeyed it. None of this made him innocent. He had heard the building groan and told workers not to move. But responsibility had a chain. The auditors followed it. Ozahon returned to Ugbovia 3 weeks after the accident. He came without a convoy. Amenze drove him in a company SUV because he was not yet cleared to drive. He wore a plain long-sleeved shirt, and his movements remained careful. Every deep breath reminded him of the wall. He went first to Pa Agatis Alo's house. Isoken was at the market. The old man sat on the veranda, repairing a small water pump. Osahon stopped before the steps. "Good afternoon, sir." Pa Agatis did not answer immediately. He tightened a screw, tested the handle, then placed the tool down. "You survived?" "Yes, thank God, yes, sir." "Do not mistake gratitude for welcome. I will not." Osahon remained standing. Pa Agatis pointed to a chair. "Sit before your ribs break again. I do not have money for another hospital." Osahon sat. For a while, neither spoke. Then the old man asked, "Why did you marry my daughter without telling her?" Osahon had prepared many explanations. The investigation, his past, security, fear of manipulation, all of them sounded smaller beneath Pa Agatis Alo's gaze. "I believed I could separate my private life from my identity until I knew whom to trust." Pa Agatis struck the pump handle with his palm. "You knew whom to trust before the wedding. You simply wanted certainty without risk." Osahon looked at him. The old man continued, You wanted her to place her whole life on the table, while you kept an emergency exit behind your back. I did not plan to leave her. That is not the only use of an exit. Power is also knowing you can change the situation while the other person cannot. Osahon lowered his eyes. Pa, Argates leaned forward. You think poverty was the test? It was not. The test was whether you could possess power without using ignorance to control another human being. The words landed harder than the falling wall. And you failed, the old man said. Yes. It was the first answer Osahon gave without defense. Pa Argates sat back. Good. Now perhaps you can begin becoming the man she believed you were. Isoken returned near sunset and found Osahon waiting beneath the plantain trees. She stopped when she saw him. He stood carefully. You should not rise so fast, she said. Then her face tightened, annoyed that concern had escaped before anger. I am better, he said. That is not the same as healed. I know. She placed her sewing bag on the veranda. What do you want? To speak without a hospital between us. She looked at her father. Pa. Argates lifted the water pump and carried it inside. I am suddenly deaf, he announced. Isoken almost smiled. She did not invite Osahon into the house. They sat outside. He began, I am sorry. She waited. No explanation followed. He continued. I tested information before sharing it. I measured your reactions. I allowed you to make financial and emotional decisions without knowing facts that could have changed them. I told myself I was protecting an investigation and protecting myself, but what I did was remove part of your freedom to choose. Isokenello's hands remained folded in her lap. He looked directly at her. I betrayed your trust. The evening sounds continued around them. A goat pulled at its rope. A child shouted from another compound. Somewhere, a pestle struck yam inside a mortar. Ordinary life surrounding an extraordinary confession. Yes, Isoken said. You did. Osahon swallowed. I cannot ask money to repair it. No. I cannot ask the accident to excuse it. No. I cannot ask my past to make it acceptable. No. He nodded. If you choose to end the marriage, I will not fight you. I will cooperate fully. I will not use influence, family pressure, or public embarrassment to hold you. For the first time, Isokenallo's expression changed. Not forgiveness, recognition, was finally placing the outcome in her hands. What do you want? She asked. To rebuild what I damaged. That answer is about what you want. He accepted the correction. What do you need? He asked. I need time. You have it. I need every fact that can affect my life. Not after I discover half of it. Not after you to decide I have passed another invisible examination. You will have it. I need to know whether there are other women, children, debts, lawsuits, family obligations, or agreements that can enter this marriage later. There are none involving children or other women. There are company lawsuits and obligations. I will disclose them with proper advice, so confidential information is handled lawfully, not hidden from you. I need independent counsel, not your lawyer. Yes, I will keep my work, my account, and the property I build. Yes. I am not moving into a mansion because you are afraid I will leave. I understand. And you will not use my face for company publicity. I will not. She studied him. These are not conditions for forgiveness. They are conditions for continued conversation. I understand. Do you? Yes. This time, the answer did not sound automatic. Isoken took a slow breath. There is something else. The farmers. The audit is ongoing. I do not want charity baskets and photographs. If money was taken wrongly, return it as money owed. We will. If contracts were misrepresented, review them with independent lawyers. Yes, if the company failed in safety, say so publicly. Yes, and you. He looked at her. You are chairman. Do not stand in front of everybody. and pretend Osowe created an entire system while you were innocent because you were hiding in a farm. The truth of it struck him. I am responsible for the failure of oversight. Then behave like it. 2 days later, Osema Foods announced an open community review meeting in Ugbovia. Not a celebration, a hearing. The company invited cooperative members, affected farmers, workers from Shed 3, independent auditors, safety engineers, legal aid representatives, and local observers. Madam Itahan tried to cancel the village hall booking. The elders overruled her. On the morning of the meeting, people arrived before sunrise. By 9, every chair was occupied. Others stood outside the windows. Iwean came wearing dark glasses. Though the sky was cloudy, she sat beside her father. Madam Itohan wore white lace, but sweat already marked the cloth beneath her arms. Osowe arrived with 2 lawyers. He did not greet Osohon. At the front table sat Mrs. Omoruyi, the auditor, an independent safety engineer, Armenans, a legal aid lawyer, and a representative from the State Cooperative Office. Osohon sat at the end, not the center. Isoken remained among the farmers. The meeting began with rules. No shouting, no threats, no declaration of guilt beyond the evidence. Every person accused would have a chance to respond. Every farmer giving testimony could request privacy. The first presentation concerned weights. Mrs. Omaruyi projected 2 sets of figures onto a white wall. Farm records, factory records, bank payments. The differences aligned across 37 deliveries. Osowe Alo's lawyer stood. Handwritten village records are unreliable. Mrs. Omaruyi nodded. That is why we did not rely on them alone. We matched them with truck capacities, driver logs, recovered weighbridge backups, timestamps, and payment instructions. She changed the slide. A deleted record appeared beside its replacement. The hall murmured. The original weight was higher. The replacement had been entered 17 minutes later, using a supervisor-level login. Osose leaned toward his lawyer. Next came the deductions. Transport recovery, quality adjustment, administrative support. No approved policy supported 2 of the charges. The quality deductions had no corresponding laboratory results. Then the payments. Ekunwe Rural Logistics, the account trail, the family relationship. Osowe stood. Using a relative Alo's company is not automatically illegal. No, Mrs. Omaruyi said. Failing to disclose the conflict, inflating invoices, and directing unauthorized deductions toward that company are the relevant concerns. The room shifted again. Madam Itohan Alo's consultancy payments came next. She rose so quickly her chair fell. That money was for community mobilization, the state cooperative representative asked. Was it disclosed to your members? It was private work. Performed while you encouraged those same members to sign contracts benefiting the payer. Madam Itahan looked around the hall. My people, you know me. Mama Nosakar stood. We knew the person you presented. The words cut through the room. Madam Itohan sat down. Then came Shed 3. The engineer displayed photographs of the corroded column, roof movement, and cracked support base. He showed the closure recommendation and the email trail proving the warning had reached Osowe Ilo's office. Uyi testified through shaking hands. They told us peak delivery could not stop. I was instructed to keep the shed open until the weekend. Who instructed you? Mr. Osowe Al's office? Osowe Al's lawyer objected. The panel noted the objection. Then the email was displayed. Hold closure until peak intake ends. Manage Lakoi. Sent from Osowe Alo's account. The hall erupted. The chairman of the session struck the table repeatedly. Order! Osowe stood, face hard. This entire process is compromised. The executive chairman returned secretly, entered restricted company property, and built a case with his wife. This is an internal coup dressed as community justice. Every eye moved toward Osahon. He rose slowly because his ribs still hurt. Osawe pointed toward Isuken. Her records are receiving attention only because she married the owner. Osahon looked at him. Her evidence does not become true because she is my wife, he said. It remains true because every figure can be checked. The room went still. And unlike you, he continued, she recorded what people told her before she knew who I was. Osawe Alo's mouth opened. Osahon did not raise his voice. You may challenge every document through the investigation. You may bring your own experts. You may defend yourself before the proper authorities. But you will not erase 37 farmers by insulting the woman who wrote down their losses. For the first time since entering the hall, Osawe looked uncertain. Osahon turned toward the farmers. I also owe this community the truth. Nobody moved. I founded Osima Foods. I withdrew from daily operations and returned here after receiving complaints. I believed secrecy would help me discover what senior reports had hidden. He paused. It did reveal wrongdoing. It also revealed my own failure. A murmur moved through the hall. I allowed distance to become ignorance. I believed policies were working because documents said they were working. I did not build strong enough protection for farmers, workers, or whistleblowers. I was chairman while these failures occurred. I cannot place every responsibility on the people beneath me. Osawe Alo's lawyer whispered urgently, but Osahon continued. Effective immediately, I am stepping aside from executive duties until the independent audit and safety review are completed. The board will appoint interim leadership. All relevant records will be preserved. Findings involving possible offenses will be referred to the appropriate authorities. Civil repayment will not wait for criminal conclusions where the financial evidence is clear. The hall did not cheer. Not immediately. People were too surprised. Then Mama no Sakare began to clap. One slow clap. Another woman joined. Then a farmer whose payment had been reduced. The sound grew, not because a billionaire had revealed himself. Because a powerful man had finally said, in public, that responsibility did not disappear upward. At the side of the hall, Iwan removed her dark glasses. For the first time, she looked at Isoken without mockery. What sat in her face was worse, recognition. She had not rejected a poor man. She had exposed the poverty of her own judgment before an entire village. The meeting did not end with handcuffs. Real accountability rarely arrived that neatly. Osawe was placed on administrative suspension while investigators reviewed the records. His access to company systems was removed in the presence of legal counsel. Copies of the Weybridge logs, payment trails, and safety correspondence were delivered to the relevant regulatory and law enforcement officers. Yuyi was also suspended. He had followed instructions, but he had ordered workers to remain inside after the building warned them with its own voice. Madame Itohan faced a different process. The cooperative constitution required members to vote on her position. The state representative read the procedure aloud, so nobody could later claim the outcome had been arranged. One by one, members marked their ballots. When the votes were counted, Madame Itohan was removed by a wide margin. She remained seated after the result. The white lace that once made her appear untouchable now looked like ordinary cloth. Chief Osegi stood near the wall, avoiding Osahon Alo's eyes. Iwan had already left. Outside the hall, reporters and curious villagers gathered around the company vehicles. Some pushed toward Isoken. Madam, how does it feel to discover you married a billionaire? Did you know before the wedding? Will you move to Lagos? Are you now a director? Amenze stepped forward to block them, but Isoken raised a hand. She looked at the phones held toward her face. I discovered that farmers were being underpaid. Ah? She said. That is the matter I came here for. A reporter tried again. But your husband Alos' identity does not change anybody Alos missing money. She walked away. Osahon watched from the doorway. For months, people had treated Isoken as an extension of him. First, the poor farmer Alos' foolish wife, then the rich chairman Alos' calculating wife. She had just refused both identities. That evening, they returned separately to the unfinished house. Osahon arrived first. He stood in the sitting room where the rain basins used to sit. Dust had gathered along the table. One of Isoken Alos' measuring tapes remained looped over a nail near the kitchen door. When she entered, he did not ask whether she had come home. He understood that entering a building was not the same as returning to a marriage. She placed the ledger on the table. The auditors are keeping scanned copies, she said. The original stays with the farmers' Alo committee. That is right. They will need a secure cupboard. I can arrange one. Not as a gift from the chairman. The cooperative can purchase it from recovered funds after members approve. Osahon nodded. She looked around. The roof still leaks, yes. You could have repaired it at any time. Yes. Why didn't allot you? He took a slow breath. At first, because I wanted to live close to the conditions I was investigating. Later, because the hardship became part of how I measured people. People? Ewan. The village. You. There it was, not hidden inside softer words. Isoken Alos' eyes hardened. You said I was not a test. You were not planned as one. But after you chose me, I watched what you would do. I told myself observation was different from testing. It was not. The truth hurt. But this time it did not arrive because she forced open a door. He had opened it himself. What did you want me to prove? She asked. That you would not change when you discovered money. And how could I prove that without discovering it? I had no honest answer. She looked at him for a long time. You created a question that required me to remain ignorant. Yes, that was not love. No. The answer shook him, but he did not withdraw it. What was real? She asked. My feelings for you. The work we did. The marriage I wanted. The respect I had for you. Respect without informed choice is incomplete. I know. No, you are beginning to know. He accepted that too. Isoken walked toward the open window. Beyond it, their cassava fields stretched beneath the evening sky. Young leaves moved in the breeze. The crop had survived the rain, the rumors and the weeks of neglect after the accident, because neighbors had weeded it while they were away. Not every neighbor. The same women who brought receipts had organized the work. What happens to this land? She asked. It remains legally mine through my mother Alo's estate. But what we grow and build during the marriage must be documented properly. Independent counsel can explain the options. And the house? The same. I contributed labor and household money here. I know. Knowing is not documentation. No. He placed a folder on the table. I asked an independent family property lawyer to prepare an explanation of possible ownership arrangements. She has not been told what decision to recommend. You may choose another lawyer before signing anything. Isoken did not touch the folder. That is a beginning, she said. Not forgiveness. A beginning. During the following months, consequences unfolded slowly. Osima Foods recalculated 49 farmer accounts, not only the 37 in Isoken Alos' ledger. Some discrepancies were legitimate, spoiled loads, foreign matter, excess moisture, but those deductions had to be supported by records. Others were not legitimate at all. Farmers received formal statements explaining each correction. Where money had been taken without basis, it was returned with interest. The company did not call the payments relief. It called them reimbursements. That distinction mattered. At every collection point, the company installed dual-facing weight displays so farmers could see the same figure the operator saw. Printers produced receipts immediately. Calibration certificates were posted where anybody could inspect them. Random checks were assigned to an outside service rather than the procurement department alone. Contracts changed too. No cooperative representative could present a land agreement as a routine supply form. Farmers received copies at least 3 days before signing. Important terms were summarized in plain language and explained in Edo or Pidgin when needed. Independent advisors attended group sessions. Anybody who could not read was allowed to choose a trusted witness who had no financial interest in the agreement. The disputed 15-year documents were suspended. Each farmer received an individual review. Some chose shorter supply agreements. Some refused entirely. Development continued, but consent could no longer be manufactured through confusion. Shed 3 was demolished after investigators completed their inspection. The new building used certified materials, visible load limits, emergency exits, and mandatory evacuation drills. Workers received safety training on paid time. A report could no longer be closed by the same manager, whose production target it threatened. The company and cooperative also created an emergency transport fund. It was not presented as generosity from Osahon. Farmers contributed a small amount approved by vote. The company matched it. Expenditure required 2 signatures and quarterly public reporting. The first time Isoken saw the account sheet pinned inside the cooperative office, she ran her finger down every entry. Madam Itahanalo's replacement, a quiet farmer named Mrs. Ezigby Omoregby, laughed. "You do not trust us? I trust records more when people know somebody will read them." Mrs. Omoregby nodded. Fair. The investigations into Osowe and others continued beyond the village Aloe's attention span. Lawyers argued. Authorities requested additional documents. Osowe denied personal wrongdoing through his counsel. Some claims would take months, perhaps years, to resolve. But he no longer controlled procurement. He no longer controlled the data, and the people he had treated as too poor to challenge him now possessed copies. Osahon remained away from executive duties for 4 months. The board appointed an interim managing executive and expanded the audit committee. A whistleblower channel was moved outside the normal reporting structure. Community payments required conflict of interest declarations. Executive bonuses were tied partly to safety and verified farmer outcomes, not only production volume. Osahon attended rehabilitation, board review interviews, and marriage counseling. The counseling was Isoken Aloe's condition. She chose the counselor, a middle-aged psychologist in Benin City named Dr. Efe Akenzua, who refused to be impressed by Osahon Aloe's title. During their first session, Osahon explained his previous betrayal. Dr. Akenzua listened. Then she asked, "What did hiding protect you from?" "Being used." "What did hiding allow you to do?" "Observe people without being observed fully." "And what did that give you?" "Control." Isoken sat beside him, silent. Dr. Akenzua turned to her. "What would repair look like to you?" "Not access to his money," Isoken said. "Access to reality." That sentence shaped the months that followed. Osahon disclosed his assets, obligations, ongoing lawsuits, family responsibilities, and estate plans through independent professional guidance. Isoken did not need every confidential factory formula. She needed to know what could affect their home, expose her to risk, or alter her decisions. She also disclosed her own plans. She wanted to expand her sewing business, not with money dropped into her account as a romantic apology. She prepared a budget: 3 industrial machines, rent for a larger shop, training stipends for apprentices, working capital for fabric, a reserve for 6 months. She applied to a Women Aloes Enterprise Fund that had no connection to Osema Foods. When the fund approved only part of the amount, Osahon offered a properly documented loan at no interest. Isoken reviewed it with her lawyer. Then she accepted. "A loan?" Ewayan asked when she heard. "From your own husband?" Isoken was pinning a hem at her new workshop. "Yes. Why not let him give you the money?" "Because I chose the structure that keeps the business clear." Ewen looked around the room. 3 women worked at separate machines. Completed school uniforms hung in labeled bundles. A whiteboard showed delivery dates, deposits received and balances due. Above the entrance was a hand-painted sign, Isoken Stitches and Training House. Ewan had come to apologize. For 10 minutes, she had discussed everything except that. Finally, she set her handbag on the table. "I was wrong," she said. Isoken continued pinning the hem. "About which part?" Ewan swallowed. About you, about him. I said you married him for land. Then when we discovered the truth, I shared that voice note." "You did. I did not know it was false. You also did not check." "No." The machines continued behind them. Ewan lowered her voice. "I was angry. Because he was rich. Because I felt everybody would think I was foolish. Did forwarding a lie make you wiser?" Ewen Alo's eyes dropped. "No." Isoken removed the pins and folded the garment. "An apology tells me you finally understand what you did," she said. "Time will tell me whether you have changed." Ewan looked up. "Does that mean you forgive me?" "It means I heard you." The answer was not cruel. It was honest. Ewan nodded slowly. As she turned to leave, she noticed a notice pinned near the door. "Apprenticeship applications open. Can I recommend somebody?" she asked. "Anybody can apply. Will you consider her?" "On the same terms as everybody else." Ewan almost smiled. "Opportunity, not favor." "Exactly." 6 months after the warehouse collapse, Ugbovia held its first read before you sign workshop. The idea came from the women Alo's ledger group. Isoken organized it with the new cooperative leadership, the legal aid network, and an extension officer. They did not teach villagers to become lawyers in one afternoon. They taught practical habits. Take a copy. Ask what happens if prices fall. Ask who owns improvements placed on your land. Ask how long the agreement lasts. Ask whether it renews automatically. Ask where disputes will be heard. Do not thumbprint a blank page. Do not feel ashamed because somebody uses English you do not understand. Big grammar is not evidence of an honest contract, Isoken told them. The hall laughed. Even Pa Agatis attended. He sat near the front, tapping his walking stick whenever speakers became too complicated. "Say it so human beings can understand." He called once. The lawyer corrected himself immediately. Osahon sat at the back. He had returned to a restructured non-executive leadership role after the audit committee published its report. The board separated the chairmanship from day-to-day management. Several recommendations remained unfinished, and he knew reforms could decay if people stopped watching. So he watched, but no longer from hiding. After the workshop, farmers gathered outside around plates of rice and moi-moi. Children chased one another between plastic chairs. The new cooperative secretary pinned a public income and expense sheet to the notice board. Chief Oseiji approached Osahon beneath the mango tree. The older man held a walking cane he did not truly need. Age had softened his face, but not his pride. "Osahon," he began. "Yes, sir?" Chief Oseiji cleared his throat. "What happened that day?" "At the meeting, people were angry." "Were you?" The old man shifted. "We did not understand your situation." "No. If we had known, you would have acted differently." Chief Oseiji stopped. Osahon Alo's voice remained calm. "That is the problem." The old man looked toward the ground. "I disgraced you." "Yes." "I am sorry." Osahon let the silence remain long enough to carry the apology O's weight. "Do not apologize because I own a company. he said. Apologize to the next man before you discover he owns anything. Chief Osaji nodded. This time, there was no audience laughing for him, only truth. Later that evening, Osahon and Isoken walked to the farm. The cassava plants had grown above their waists. Broad green leaves overlapped across straight ridges. The crop was not miraculous. Some plants had failed. Pests damaged one corner. Heavy rain had washed soil from 2 rows. But the field was healthy. The soil test had helped. The certified cuttings had helped. Proper spacing had helped. Work had helped. Time had helped most of all. They stood where Osahon had once marked the ground with a planting stick. Mr. Ehigiata says we should sample before harvest, Isoken said. I spoke to him. I know. He sent the invoice to both of us. Osahon smiled. That was your instruction? Yes. No more private arrangements on a shared farm. He looked toward the unfinished house in the distance. Scaffolding now stood along one wall. Repairs had begun, but Isoken had refused to demolish the building and replace it with a mansion. They were redesigning it together. A larger workroom for her. A proper accessible bathroom for Pa Agatis when he visited. Rainwater collection. Clear ownership documentation. Nothing hidden beneath romance. Osahon turned to her. Do you regret that day? Which day? The day you picked my envelope from the mud. Isoken looked across the field. I regret saying, maybe I will, Aloe, before asking enough questions. He laughed softly, then winced out of old habit, though his ribs had healed. She continued, but I do not regret defending you. Do you regret marrying me? The question remained between them. She did not rescue him from it quickly. I regret the version of the marriage you controlled through silence, she said. I do not regret what I chose when the choice was truly mine. Osahon nodded. I am not trying to be fair. I am trying to be accurate. That sounds like you. They walked farther between the rows. After a while, he asked, why did you choose me? Isoken stopped. The first time? Yes. I did not choose a poor man. I chose a man I believed would never use another person, Aloe's weakness against them. The answer cut through him. She held his gaze. You failed that belief. I know. And now, he waited. Now you are learning to deserve it again. A breeze moved across the cassava leaves, one row after another, until the whole field seemed to breathe. Osahon reached for her hand. He did not take it immediately. He left his palm open between them. A question, not an assumption. Isoken looked at it. Then she placed her hand in his. They continued walking, not as a poor farmer and the woman who saved him, not as a billionaire and the wife who passed his test. As two imperfect people who had learned that love without truth could become another form of control, and that forgiveness without change was only permission for harm to return. The village behind them was changing too, not completely. Some people still gossiped. Some farmers still signed papers too quickly. Some managers still searched for easier ways around new rules. A policy could be ignored. A ledger could be misplaced. A good leader could become comfortable. That was why the work could not end with one meeting or one public apology. Dignity needed systems. Trust needed records. Justice needed people willing to check whether promises had become practice. In my view, the most dangerous lesson anybody could take from Isoken Aloe's journey would be that kindness leads to a secretly wealthy person. That was never the value of what she did. Most people we treat with dignity will never own a large company. They will never return with a convoy, reveal hidden shares, or reward us with money. They should not need to. Respect is not an investment made because we hope poverty is wearing a disguise. It is the minimum debt one human being owes another. Osahon Aloe's wealth exposed the hypocrisy of those who had mocked him, but it did not erase his own wrongdoing. A painful betrayal may explain why somebody becomes secretive. It does not give that person the right to control another human being, Aloe's choices. Trust is not proven by creating a test the other person does not know they are taking. It is built by telling the truth early enough for them to decide freely. And perhaps the most valuable things in this story were not the company, the land, or the money. They were an emergency envelope that could not solve everything, but prevented zero from becoming disaster. A ledger that transformed whispers into evidence. A woman who kept her source of income instead of sacrificing her entire independence in the name of love. A leader who finally accepted that responsibility travels upward as well as downward. And an open hand that waited for consent before closing around another. Those things are ordinary. But real dignity is usually protected through ordinary decisions, repeated until they become a way of life.